Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of my Trash to Treasure series where I take this guitar from trash to treasure. This time we're doing the PRS SE Tremonti. So this time I want to talk a little bit more in depth about action. So there are three main components to action. The first is going to be the neck, the truss rod, which is usually referred to as relief. I like to think of that as the most drastic. It's taking a sledgehammer or a crane to a building. It's only something that should be done out of great need and desperation. Secondly, you have the bridge, which is really where you want to fine-tune things. That's the hammer instead of the sledgehammer. It's more fine, it's more precise. And then thirdly, you have the nut. Now the nut should be something that you kind of set and forget, so you set it up once and then you never have to do it again if you cut the nut correctly. However, with this guitar, it had all three were wrong, and so that's why it was causing such major setup problems. And I would say that a lot of the really bad guitars that I have played struggle from probably multiple of these sources, and so figuring it out can be kind of tricky. So let's talk a little bit about what I did to fix each one. So the PRS SE guitars, let's go ahead and I'll show you. The nut adjustment is here by the headstock, and I believe, now I have never actually owned a Gibson guitar. I have an Epiphone Dot, but the truss rod adjustment is like this. Sorry guys. Focus, little buddy. It's this guy right here. So what you actually need, and that's kind of annoying because a lot of the Fender style guitars that I have aren't like that. They take a standard Allen wrench, whereas this guitar I needed to actually go out and get a set of these. So these are, I don't even know, hex wrenches. But I did some research, and actually PRS, if you get a PRS guitar from the shop, it will come with a tool, but mine did not, and that's just kind of what happens when you get a guitar like this. Now, that's okay, but the main problem that I ran into was that, so this is, I looked it up, and it says it's a size number 7. So these guys right here come in numbers. So it's in size number 7, which I've got. Sorry, this is the 1/4. Where is my size? This is it. It's around here somewhere. Well, anyways, here we go. Sorry guys, I recently rearranged my setup, and now it's kind of a situation where nothing is where it used to be, and so it just takes me a minute to find everything. So anyways, the number 7 key actually doesn't fit quite perfectly. Now I'm not sure if that's because PRS does some sort of custom setup with their own special tools, because PRS guitars will come with a designated truss rod adjustment tool. So anyways, I had to kind of do the best that I could. It would kind of go on halfway, but it would not fit on perfectly. Now, again, I'm not sure if any of you are PRS experts out there. Please comment down below. Let me know what I'm doing wrong, but it didn't quite fit perfectly. So I had to do the best that I could to get it to adjust without really stripping that screw head. And I've kind of gotten the action to a point where it is not so bad. This is one of the difficult things to put on camera. And what I'm looking for here is this stripe right here. Well, what I do is I put the guitar down by my feet with the headstock in my stomach. I'll try to show you. So I put the guitar down at the floor like this. And maybe I'm kind of dumb, but like an archer, I'll actually close one of my eyes, and I will look down on this line right here. So I'm comparing the angle of the neck with the low E string as my gauge. And it actually is pretty flat. There's a little bit of relief. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this guitar came with like 13 gauge strings or something crazy. I'm guessing that the previous owner was into drop tuning. Whoops. So anyways, I am not into drop tuning. So I got those guys on there though, and I hate wasting a good set of strings. So what I did is I drop tuned, but I play it standard. So it's in currently D standard. So the relationship of the strings is standard, but they start in D. So it's very low tuned, but it actually works nicely. It keeps the neck from having too crazy much pressure. So anyways, that got sorted out. This guy was a problem because I was having all these issues with these grooves being stripped out. For whoever had used it previously, really messed up. But then, let's talk about the nut. So, that kind of wanted to be my focus of this episode, is this nut. So, let's talk about that. Now, nut files are very expensive, and that's annoying to me, because I do a lot of work on my own guitars, which will involve setting up a nut from time to time. But I don't do enough of them, and I don't do it as a profession to really warrant investing, a couple $100 into a set of really nice StewMac nut files. So what I did is I did some research on some do-it-yourself nut files, and this is kind of what I come up with, and this is what works for me. So this is in no way like if you want a professionally done job, this is not really how to do it. But if you need to just get the job done in a way that functions, this is how to do it. So I got this set of nut files on eBay for like, I don't know, 30 or 40 bucks. And it comes with 3 files that are dual-sided. And so they work pretty well. Now the main problem though is that they have dulled fairly easily. So they aren't the most effective. And with this nut, I believe this is a bone nut. I'm not even exactly sure, to be honest. It might be some weird Korean or something. But this one needed some pretty heavy adjustment. And so I actually also want to talk about these two things. So I actually have gotten quite a bit of use out of this tool. This is from Walgreens, a fingernail file. And it has 2 sides. One of them is a little bit sharper and the other one is a little bit more dull, which actually is nice because the sharper side is a little bit more narrow, whereas the duller side is a little bit more round. And actually, it works really nicely. If you compare it with my number 1, so this would be for the low E string, the high E string, it's actually pretty close in terms of thickness. So this could work on even the thinnest of slots. And then for the thicker slots, what you can do is, these are, I believe, tire gauges. You get them at an automotive store. And the nice thing about them is they will give you precise measurements. So if you need to have like this is 14 millimeters, so that would be pretty good. This is like right here. Let's hear I usually use 10 on the high E string, so we do this guy right here. This is a .11. You want a little bit of extra slack. So if I compare this to this number 1, which is for the high E string, it's relatively similar. And so what this does is it gives you a way to measure what you're doing. So the problem with this is that it's just some random value. You don't really know if it matches up with the strings. But with this, it gives you a way to reference it. So if I take this string out of its slot, I can put this guy in there and think, okay, how much wiggle room is there? Is it pretty snug? Is it pretty tight? Does it even fit all the way to the bottom? It also gives me a feel for the angle, which is really nice, so I can see that it fits pretty snugly, and it's at a little bit of an angle, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. So anyways, it just gives you a way to test. Now, I've heard of some guys who will actually, see, I kind of did it with this one. Kind of started to give it some notches. And so you could actually use these to cut the nut themselves. I think I got this off of Ron Kern. Sorry guys, I'm really struggling with orienting this thing. But I prefer to kind of use all of these tools in combination. So I will kind of start with maybe these nut files, or maybe I'll start with this fingernail file, because this is the one if I really need to like go hard on something and it needs to take a beating, I don't have to worry about this because it was like $1. So I don't care if I wear this thing out. And then I'll use my nut files to measure it, you know, because with this one I might need to spend some time opening the hole if the slot size isn't correct. And then I'll use the actual nut files that I got off eBay as kind of like a finishing touch to make sure that the slot is the right shape. You don't want it to be too much of a V, because that will create a pinch. You want like kind of a U, so that the string sits in the bottom of that slot, but it doesn't pinch, but there's also not too much room that it's sliding around. So anyways, I'll use all these tools kind of in combination, using the nut gauges, or the tire gauges, or whatever these are for, to give me a feel for the measurement. And then the real kicker is the depth. So that's really what it's all about. Now, with this guitar, it was way, way too high. So I spent some time bringing it down. Now, you probably can Google some measurements as far as what a professional proper measurement is. This kit came with a measuring tool, but I don't really even use it that much. Yeah, see, I don't even know what these numbers actually mean. But it has this tool, which will actually give you a measurement. So you can put this guy on here, get a measurement for how high the action is, which is nice. So it looks like it's at about 1/16 at the 2nd fret, based off of the frets. So the distance between where the fret meets the string, which is nice. It's a nice way to give you a little bit of a test measurement there, and you can go by each one and kind of get a feel for where you're at. Now, I'm not somebody who tends to do these very like technically and use a lot of numbers and math. I tend to do it a little bit by feel, and also what I will do is I will use tuning. So obviously one of the important things when you are filing nut slots is you want to get the tuning correct. So the biggest thing there is if the nuts is cut correctly, you should be able to press all of these, you know, each way along at each fret, and it will be in tune properly. Now, if the nut is too high, then going down at the 1st or 2nd fret will really pull the note very sharp. So this F will, if the E is in tune properly, but then if you press this F and it goes really sharp, you know, that's a pretty good bet that your nut is too high. And that was kind of the problem I'm running into. So I will slowly pull it down, and it's kind of a give and take. If you go too far and you go too low, then you'll actually start buzzing at these low frets, because there isn't enough clearance and enough of an angle to keep you from actually buzzing the string. So you kind of want to walk that tightrope where you're not too low, where it starts buzzing, but it's not. If it's too high, then it won't be in tune properly. So I've gotten the outside ones pretty good, but the inside 4 could all be lowered a little. But I tend to be somebody who does this over time. I don't tend to set up guitars once and then be done. I send it up over time. So I'll play it for a week, see how it is, and then maybe adjust it some more along the way. So I hope that's helpful for you guys out there who are looking to do some work on nuts. You know, these tools didn't cost me a whole lot of money. This is probably $25 worth of tools here, but it gets the job done. It's not technically very professional, but those professional level tools are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I'm just not convinced that they're necessary or worth it in order to get a functionally cut nut. Now, if you are looking to do this professionally as a job, you certainly would make a lot of sense to invest in something like that. But for me, where I do this as a hobby and I do it for fun, these tools get the job done for me, and I have no problem with it. My guitars are set up well. They're set up the way that I like them to be set up, and that's really all that matters, is that they play well for me. So let me know your thoughts down below if you've got any thoughts or questions on cutting a nut properly. You know, once I got the nut a lot better and I got the neck to be pretty straight and I got the bridge in a good spot, this guitar really came to life. In terms of the way that it plays, the way that the strings sustain, the way that the pickups sound, it really came to life. And so I really highly recommend investing in getting a good setup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you soon. Bye.